All right, thank you. Next item. So we have three presentations today. As you know, we did start and open a new window for applications. As part of that window, there were 3 applicants that filed within the time frame that was asked, and those 3 are in front of you today. Dion, as we go into the first one, which is Albert Einstein's Academy, if you could just confirm for me that we really don't have any formal applications in front of us other than these 3 at this moment. I think you said that earlier, but just since we're here now, just so I have everybody's understanding of that.
That's correct. Yep, no other formal applications, just these 3 that were submitted during the open window, which closed on July 31st, I think.
Great. Okay, so if without further ado, if we could go and go through them one by one. They're on the agenda. Albert Einstein is first on the agenda, so if we could go through that presentation, that'd be great.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so first one here is Albert Einstein Academy High School Master Plan. Master Plan Project Team, David Sharetta, Superintendent with Albert Einstein Academies, Kathy Montez, who's Director of Operations, Ray Rodriguez, Consultant to Albert Einstein Academies, myself, I acted as the project manager for the master planning process on this project. And then we have John Baker and Buddy Gessel with Baker Nowicki Design Studio, who prepared and worked with the charter school on the master plan. Contents, goals, facts, needs, and concepts. Looked at the existing proposed site, conducted a facility assessment, came up with some site concepts, reviewed the program assessment that was provided by the school, and came up with a conceptual design and budget as part of this master planning process, which are all tasks that occurred during the process. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. David Sharetta to speak as to the Albert Einstein Academy's planning that they did prior to going into this master planning process.
Yeah, thank you, Dion, and thank you to the committee for allowing me to kind of hop over to the other side of the aisle for a bit here, and I will be recusing myself from the vote, so just in the spirit of openness here. But I wanted to provide just a little bit of background. What you see today is a really important step in a 20-year journey that started with 37 students in a church basement in 2002 and brings us to the present moment of about 1,450 students across 2 Albert Einstein Academies campuses. In 2013, we embarked on our own private facilities project, purchasing and refurbishing an old hospital and made it a state-of-the-art middle school. So our team definitely has experience with these sorts of projects. In December of 2020, the San Diego Unified School Board approved a 6-year charter extension. I think it might have been the first, certainly in the county and maybe in the state, that was over a 5-year charter extension. It also combined our elementary and middle into one LEA and added grades 9 through 12 starting in fall 2024. So obviously by fall 2024 or soon thereafter, we are looking for a place to house our high school, which will begin with 200 ninth graders and will culminate with 800 students at its full capacity, which I think would make it the largest charter high school within the boundaries of San Diego Unified. I really come to you today, just to let you know that we have a very dynamic community. The Einstein community is over 3,000 folks strong between staff and parents and students. We have a list of 350 signatures and comments from parents who are very excited about the prospect of a high school facility and to realize the dream of going K-12 at Albert Einstein Academies. Our dream is to have the IB programs all the way through from K through 12. We currently have them K through 8. We are just under 50% free and reduced lunch across our two schools. Very diverse population. The majority of our students are Hispanic or Latino, and it's just an honor to come before this group today. I do want to say that when we get to the budget piece in the presentation, I'd like the committee to know that we've already been very cognizant of those numbers that Eric spoke about or asked about before, and we've already begun to kind of do some value engineering at the front end of this to cut about 10% out of the cost of the project from where it was just a few weeks ago. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and I'll turn it back over to Dion.
Okay, thanks, David. So I'm going to get into the heart of the presentation. So there's a proposed existing site that Albert Einstein has looked at, which just so happens to be right next door to the middle school. Albert Einstein has actually done some due diligence with regards to this property. And so this is the existing site that's being proposed, or existing building with parking. Let's see, some photographs, views from the existing site, looking towards the west, downtown, kind of northwest, and then looking towards Grant Hill Park, which is to the east. We have some photographs here of the existing middle school on the adjacent site. And then this is basically a facility assessment summary that was done by the design team. So we spent some time out on the site looking at electrical, mechanical, fire protection, structural, plumbing, and architectural items with the various engineers as part of this master planning process. So the proposed conceptual site plan would include the existing building basically, and then reconfiguring the parking area, as well as some of the lower area of the existing building, which this existing building was formerly a hospital building as well, so built to or constructed to OSHPD standards. And they actually have currently a driveway for a drop-off going through this area, which would be reconfigured as a secondary entrance for student drop-off and pickup in the morning and in the afternoon, which I will show you on the next slide. So this shows a potential circulation pattern for traffic and drop-off in the mornings and in the afternoon. So you would have drop-off curbside along 46th Street here. Is that, no, it's not 46th, 26th, sorry. Yeah, 26th Street. And then potential curb drop-off here as well. But you also have the circulation opportunity for drop-off inside the existing or the proposed new campus that would circulate through, drop off at the rear entrance to the building, and then exit out onto Island Avenue. So that's proposed circulation patterns from all the adjacent streets and then exiting out onto the site. A programming study was done by Albert Einstein Academies along with Ray Rodriguez to come up with a program of various spaces that would be required for an 800 student high school. And with that programming, it fits within the proposed facility that is being shown today. for a total of 800 students. Design drivers with regards to various items that were discussed with regards to design, exterior concepts, and then key findings as far as number of teaching stations, students per classroom, parking spaces required, architecture to feel like a school. Main material palette would consist of refurbishing existing surfaces and then adding some surfaces to the exterior of the building. High school building would complement the middle school building next door. And then, let's see, as far as design drivers are concerned, the existing building has 4 elevators in it now. We would take out realistically those 4 elevators and convert them to a central stair in the building, but then add in an elevator at the rear portion of the building, which you'll see in some additional slides coming up. Administrative spaces, 2-story lobby on the southwest corner of the building, feeding into classroom and larger assembly spaces on that lower level of the building. So this is a zone, what they call a zoning diagram, or kind of a section cut through the building that shows this is an existing 6-story building. So what this building would consist of, and this is kind of the west face of the building, 2 of these levels are below grade on this side, but at grade on this side. And then the remaining 4 levels are at grade along 26th Street and go up from there. Sorry about the dog barking in the background. And so at level 1, you'd have a student entry, multi-purpose room, lecture hall or small auditorium, and PE, along with a couple of classrooms. Level 2, we've got classrooms, visual and performing arts, and food service. Level 3 is basically your administration space for the high school and library media center. Then levels 4, 5, and 6 are all classroom spaces up above. And you can see the central stair structure replacing the 4 elevators and then the stair structure here at the rear of the building, because multi-story buildings require a minimum of 2 stair structures and 1 elevator. So starting at level 1, which is part of the building here, about half or so of the building is below grade. You can see the conceptual design at this point for this facility is a multi-purpose room. We have girls and boys PE changing rooms and restrooms, classroom here, a couple of ancillary and or storage rooms. Then we've got PE dance, cardio, and fitness, and then a lecture room or auditorium. And this is the entry lobby that was discussed earlier, wherein students are dropped off here and they can enter the facility on this side or dropped off up on 26th Street and can enter the building during drop-off and pickup times here and or exit through the building there. Second level consists of an arts room, music room, some storage, teacher prep, and classrooms, along with a food servery. And then this space here would be included as an outside deck eating area, but then would transition down to the parking lot / drop-off area as well. Here's stair structure and elevator on the back side of the building, and then you can see the central stair tower here in the building as well. Let's see, going up to the next level. This is the main level coming in off of 26th Street. There's currently this entry plaza here, which would remain. It has a ramp currently down to 26th Street, and then these stairs here would be added. You've got administrative space on this entry level, and then you've got library media center, and then an ancillary space it could be used for storage, offices, etc., based on the conceptual master plan that's been developed. See, fourth floor, all classrooms. So you'll see this consistently going from the fourth floor up is all classroom spaces. This is the conceptual fifth floor plan. Fourth floor would actually have a outdoor learning area too. This is currently roof area that could be converted to an outdoor learning area where these classrooms could open up to that outdoor learning area. Go to the fifth floor, basically a duplication of the fourth floor, all classrooms and teacher prep room. And then sixth floor, same thing, all classrooms and teacher prep room. Each of these floor levels would likely have restrooms. So you wouldn't have students going down to lower levels to use restrooms. They could be smaller restrooms based on the student population on each of the floors. As you can see, this particular sixth floor level has science classrooms for high school and a shared prep room for those science rooms, and then classrooms on this side of the building. So then we go into the next slide. We've got some conceptual aerial views that have been developed by our architect team, taking the existing building and basically adding some cladding on the exterior building and kind of opening up this face of the building, putting in glazing and metal panel below. The front face of the building basically stays the same except for adding some metal paneling or metal panel to the exterior surface of the building and then sandblasting the existing concrete. And then looking at some exterior elevations or conceptual exterior elevations, this would be the north elevation looking towards the existing middle school building. Taking this tower and this tower on the 26th Street side and on the west side of the building and adding some metal panel to it. This would be the new lunch deck coming off of the food servery. But pretty much the structure of the overall building stays intact and becomes a renovation of interior spaces. This is the elevation, west elevation, showing the drop off here, the secondary entry point. You've got the upper eating deck coming off of the servery, stairs going up to that location, as well as entrance points into the building. And this wall here, which is existing, would just be converted to add more glazing to it to allow light to go through the building from basically west to east, because you've got the matching or similar tower on the other side of the building. Let's see here. Then you've got a couple more elevations that will show. This is the elevation along 26th Street, so it'd be the east elevation. The tower on that side, adding some metal panel. Windows stay the same. Front entry plaza pretty much stays the same except for adding the stair structure, and then providing some renovated finishes. And then south elevation, this is along, I can't remember the name of the street that drops down there, but this is along the other street side going from 26th down to the parking lot. And again, metal paneling on these two towers. Basically, the whole facade of this building essentially stays the same except for maybe boxing out at the windows and then sandblasting and painting the existing concrete and adding some glazed wall here at this entry plaza. So I want to show, so this is a photograph of the existing building and then a proposed or conceptual rendering of what it could look like at conclusion of construction. And as you can see, the exterior facade pretty much stays the same except for changing out this portion of the tower and adding finishes to the exterior of the building. That was the west elevation. This is a conceptual before existing and after of the east elevation of the building. And as you can see, the entry plaza is currently there, just missing this the stair for access. Let's see here. Next one is looking from kind of the northeast at the building. Again, structure of the building pretty much stays the same. Windows, all those type of spaces stay the same. It's just adding some new exterior finishes and maybe some graphics on the face of the building. And then looking from kind of the northwest, so this is the facade that faces the existing middle school, and you can see a before photograph here, and then a proposed or conceptual rendering of what it could possibly look like at conclusion. So that covers the presentation portion of the proposal, or the master plan and proposal, and then we get into the estimated project cost. So currently estimated land/building acquisition would range between $18 and $20 million. Hard costs for construction, $44,442,992. Soft costs, which includes design, engineering, permitting, testing, CEQA, inspections, construction contingency, and project contingency of about $16,176,333. So total estimated project cost, $78,619,325,000 to $80,619,325. And that concludes the project presentation for Albert Einstein Academy's High School.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other staff comments?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think this is a beautiful design, and Dion, the team, I think the Baker DeWicki and the project management team, kudos to the team. I would recommend that if the committee considered this, that they allocate the higher of the two numbers in the range, because we really don't have we'll have to do an appraisal of the building, and that appraisal will guide the maximum price at which the district will be allowed to pay, and then we'll negotiate if this, if this is successful, we get a successful negotiation with the current owner. That's really the driver for this, and so we don't know where that's going to land, but I know that we have a lot of information about the building, because Albert Einstein's done a lot of work with that, and so but we can't actually disclose a range because it's a real estate issue, and so we can't actually state what our budget is for building acquisition. But I think the district would like to request the maximum latitude in terms of acquiring the building. And I also kudos to the team for value engineering the project a little bit. I know we have limited unallocated funds available to us, but as we saw earlier, there are more money coming in terms of Prop 51 and other funds that may be freed up over time. So I think there's a sufficient enough cushion in the overall program to support the program, this project in the program, if the committee so chooses to approve it.
Thanks, Lee. Okay, open up for discussion from the committee members. Or Dave, Dave, is there anything else before you recuse yourself as a project applicant that you wanted to close with?
No, other than to thank Dion and the team for the work, and that street is J Street. So Island, J,
Okay,
yeah.
got it. And 26th.
and 26th, yeah.
Okay. Thanks, David.
Great. All right, Joel.
I did have Dave's not gonna leave, is he? Or are you gonna leave, Dave? I had a question for Dave before he leaves.
I won't leave unless I get vaporized by whoever controls my presence. So I'm
Okay.
here until further notice.
Okay. Yeah, I had a couple of questions, and maybe Dave, maybe others on the panel. So, you're proposing to go up to 12th grade? Okay. And
Right.
so you have gone through that process with the charter office already to do that? Okay.
Yeah, so last December, the board approved the addition of grades 9 through 12 and including our enrollment growth plan that adds 200 students a year. So we matriculate 200 eighth grade. We graduate currently 200 eighth graders. And so the plan is to make sure that starting in kindergarten, no Einstein student will be prevented from having that dream of the pathway all the way through. And so obviously if our eighth graders, not all of them matriculate, then we'll have openings in a lottery system as we do with our other schools.
Wow, okay, that's great. I really envy you. We applied a couple of years ago and we were denied. The other question I had maybe it's for panel members, the cost per student, I think we had talked a little bit about that maybe a couple of years ago, of what maybe it was the total cost per student that we would be allocating for different projects. Did we ever take a look at that ratio?
Joel, not since I've been on, and again, you said a couple of years ago, so I'm going to assume that's preceding Alexa and I. Did we have like a cost per student when we've looked at, I think, 2 other proposals since we've been here, like to approve them?
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what you're seeking, and I'm happy to hear. I just was making sure.
It seems like a while back we were talking about some of the different projects, and maybe Miles, you remember this, looking at how big some of the projects could go. And so we were looking at different situations where schools would be adding grades and not adding grades. And so we did discuss, I think, a little bit about cost per student, or maybe we were talking more about like the district's requirements for the square footage per student. Maybe I'm mixing it up with that, but I remember us talking something like about that.
Yeah, I mean, so historically, I'll just say we've had a number of conversations. I think Eric has been on the committee as long as I have, but we've had a number of conversations revolving around cost per student, and then, like you just said, square footage, cost per square footage. And we've asked the district to look at those numbers to stay within the boundaries of what their costs are on average. What we've learned from that information over time is that there is differences in those numbers. There's a lot of variation, I guess is the best way to say it, in those numbers overall. And I don't know that we've ever on the committee established a clear cap on those numbers because it is tricky. And then I know Alexa and Christine have joined the committee since we've been, since we did approve a project recently. And I know we talked briefly about that project's dollar amount and the number of students they serve, but we didn't, again, take any action based on cost per student. And I see Lee's already unmuted, so I'll stop because Lee is the magic answer man.
Thanks, Miles. So I'll just, I hate to do math in public, but I'll give it a shot here. If you looked at the CDE guidance for cost per to think about what cost per student is, CDE guidance roughly says for high school students, we're talking about 120 square feet per student allocated for a high school. Now, I think that number's low. City East always kind of targets a little low, especially in a building or on a site where there's not a lot of outdoor circulation space and a lot of outdoor space. So you really have to think about all the indoor spaces that really would be outdoors in this case. But just if you were to do that and then sort of look at the quick math, if you wanted to build a high school today from scratch on, of course, this is absent the land acquisition piece. I think you're looking at, you're looking at about 96,000 square feet minimum, if you do that math, 120 times 800. And then you're probably looking at an order of magnitude. So that translates into total project costs of somewhere between 80 and $100 million. And that's not including the land, and in this case, the building. So this is just, if you were to, whether it's a charter school or a traditional school, that's kind of the order of magnitude you're looking at for 800 students. And then throw the land in, and that varies, depends on the location. Obviously, this one's near downtown, and there's suburban locations, so land is always just a big variable. But so that to give you an idea, so this falls within the range of a normal cost for an 800 student high school.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you for that.
I know, Leslie, you're going, but Joel, I just want to give a chance for Joel to finish if he's got anything more he wanted to add, and then we'll go to you, Alexa.
Well, the last thing was, and maybe Dave can answer this. So for parking, the requirements that you have for parking, were those district standards or other standards because your building's not a district building, or do you know?
I'm gonna defer that one to Dion, I believe, because I don't fully know.
Right. So basically, Joel, what we were looking at as far as parking is enough parking for staff and a few visitor spaces, just because of the limited space on that particular site.
Okay, and none for the high schoolers, nothing for high schoolers to park or any consideration of that?
Yeah, because of the limited space on site, we didn't take into account very many spaces for, high school students to be able to park on site. And David, you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, that gets to the heart of the value engineering piece. Originally, there were some dreams of elevated sport courts with underground parking, and those quickly went by the wayside when we started to do the numbers. And by the way, an outdoor turf field also was excised from this as well. So the plan is to try to take advantage of the local public transit corridors, trolley, etc., and make it work in the community here. Yeah. So it'll be tight. It'll be tight. But we also have the opportunity of some synergy between the two campuses, right? Because the north side of this city block is the Einstein Middle School. So in terms of if there's an ability to take some of the parking load off on the middle school site, we can. So I think there's an opportunity to work between the two.
Okay, so I guess going back to Dion then, so there is some flexibility then, you're saying, in the district's point of view on parking for a site, depending on the current square footage of the site and what it's going to be used for and all that.
Yes. Yeah, the
Okay.
district does, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, but we have flexibility when it comes to parking on our school sites. We don't have to meet, for instance, the city's zoning requirements for a minimum number of parking spaces.
So for district-owned property, we don't have to have a conditional use permit. Our typical design is 1.5 spaces per staff member or classroom. That isn't always met on traditional schools or charter schools. We have some schools that have no surface parking. traditional schools with no surface parking, just street parking. So we're not always able to meet that goal. There is no requirement. If the city, though, I got to tell you, we're doing some projects with the city that are non-school projects, and they're really relaxing their parking requirements dramatically because they're really interested in density and affordable housing, and they're not requiring developers to build parking anymore. The assumption, especially in dense transit areas, in which I would imagine there's a lot of transit nearby here. And I would also say, lastly, that I think, if at some point there's more money available for charter schools and, this program changes, I mean, there's always an opportunity to do a second phase and realize the goal of hard court over parking or something of that nature, as a final phase, because the parking areas are contiguous and it's open and flexible in that regard, that we're leaving that open for future development. So there is a possibility that those additional elements could be added in the future.
Okay.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Miles. That's all I had.
Okay, and as we go to Alexa, I just would clarify, just so any of the public that's listening, so this would end up being a district-owned property. I know, Joel, you mentioned it's not. The site next door is not, but this would be district-owned, and that's the way that we've been executing on capital bond projects dollars. And so I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that, because there are a couple unique projects that we have in the portfolio. One that is owned by the district, but doesn't necessarily meet all of the district's typical methods and practices on their own facilities that are more traditional, like.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at. Yeah, that's really important, because originally that was not a school site, correct?
Right, that's right.
Okay,
Correct.
yeah, okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at.
Great, perfect, thank you. Alexa.
I was actually just going to speak to Joel's initial question about the cost per student. Just all I have to compare it off my experience is Kavode's, and this doesn't seem that much higher than what per student that Kavode was allocated. And we didn't have to acquire a site or and it's a middle school elementary program compared to a high school, which is a lot more complicated. So just kind of looking just at that's the only comparison I have off the top of my head. For a high school that has to acquire a site, the allocation does not seem that much higher than what was allocated per child. That's all I was going to share.
If possible, I'd like to ask, or not ask, I think it was, I just want to make sure of a couple of things and just verify there were open opportunity, right, for all of the applications. We have 3. And Dion, I think you made a comment. I just want to make sure that all 3 can be covered under what we have right now. And you made it really quickly in the beginning, because I understand it seems very reasonable. When I think of a high school and I think of other projects that I've seen that are at completion level, this seems like, for its location and its place, like a reasonable understanding of what it's offering, plus a very fancy, beautiful presentation. My wondering is, thinking about what Lee said, to err on the side of higher, I'm almost really cautious because of how much I keep hearing in my personal life. So this is, again, and professionally, how I've heard from you all that supplies keep going up. And then because the supply chain is so crushed right now, I think if there's a range, I'm leaning into the higher, just so you can in the lower, because I know he talked about real estate, but I'm just trying to make sure that we're going to be reasonable also as well.
Yeah, I apologize for jumping in here, Christina.
That's fine, it's great.
We will have to allocate a range because we can't actually approve a number because of the real estate acquisition component. Okay. But in terms of the committee's approval, I would request the committee approve the higher number, and then we'll figure out how to put it into a board doc. Because we can't have any room to negotiate if we've already specified an exact number, so
especially
we have to,
with timing involved. So I'm just saying, I confirm, like, I would prefer to go that route to give the most leeway possible. I've seen it used in the best efforts on the district side. So I think that just gives you the timing based grace you need. So I'm more inclined just to say publicly, I'd rather go that route out loud.
Yeah, and I would also echo Christine. The way I think we've most often done this, I don't think there's a case where we haven't done it this way. These are always up to amounts that we select. We know staff will do their best to make sure that it comes in under those amounts, and they'll work as hard as they can to do that, and they come back to us if there would be a question on whether they can hit that amount. But it would be up to, and so I think I saw the range also. I'm glad that it seems like the consensus so far, and I know we'll take action later or potential action later, but seems like taking the top range number is what the consensus seems to be building on. So.
And I would also say that we're a site that came under very strategically with Dion. So I think I speak on behalf of saying both charters work in good faith, and I think the district works in good faith to do their very best to like give you that wiggle room and then move from under if possible. So.
Right. Christine, any other questions? Any other comments? Okay.
No, thank you.
Eric, anything on your end? I know we haven't heard from you yet.
I'll just note that I think for a few years I've been a bit of a broken record in asking the same question that Joel raised. So it's well taken. I've kind of gotten to the point where I can do the math in the back of my head, so I didn't do it today. But we've been concerned about this all along. The cost of building schools is just incredibly high. The construction costs, it's a highly regulated process in so many ways. And I appreciate the value engineering work that the school has done here. And I know the school has a lot of skin in the game here and really appreciate that, David.
Hey, I have a request. Eric, would you be willing to share those numbers that you have in the back of your head with us so that we have as we continue to approve these projects, we have a basic idea of what that is?
It's exactly what what staff had said. We're usually in the low 100 square foot per student range, usually in the range of anywhere from $600 to $900 per square foot. Property costs are a huge unknown variable, and then you can get other variables, particularly mitigation and environmental mitigation can be a real challenge. And then soils is another kind of variable. So there are a whole bunch of these little variables that come in unique to each site. I've happened to be at this site several times in the past and know that it's a heavily developed area. There's not much in the way of spare property for parking or anything else. So, they have made some very specific decision trade-offs here. And there is a tiny park nearby, but, I think they have to be very careful with the neighborhood not to overload that. And I assume they're going to have to work hard to deal with the parking mitigation and other things as well. And so it's a cool site. It really meets a need in a way that's tough to do in a heavily built up area like San Diego, and hats off to the school for the work that it's already done. So.
Great. Anything else, Eric?
The thing that's much harder to do, I think, is for the the renovations and upgrades and getting a objective measure of equity there is so hard because some sites are starting off much worse than others and need a lot more work than others, and that's much tougher to get a wrench around from a committee level, at least has been my experience.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Eric. Okay, so, and I would just close that part of the conversation with the fact that, again, kudos out to San Diego Unified, because one of the reasons I think you would find that this bond program over the history of the bond program, even as far back as Prop MM, has been successful at containing costs is because it's a program that doesn't come up and down. It just continues to provide service over a long period of time. They typically have a bond lined up that allows them to continue the work that needs to be done over time, which is not the same case that you'll see in smaller school districts or other school districts around the state where they have to build up their capacity to do project management and all kinds of soft costs that the district can absorb over time because it's working consistently and stably on the project. So I think it's something that I don't think we think about enough, or I always remember when we're talking about how efficiently this program is run and what it's done not only for district schools but for charter schools over the last, from my experience, for charter schools for the last 10 years now. So we're going into our 10th year. So thank you for that. Any other questions from the committee? We do not have a motion yet on the table. This is a discussion action item. So if there's a motion, I'm willing to accept that now.
I'll move it.
Thanks, Eric.
I can second.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a vote. Why don't we do this as a recorded vote? I think I did that with Elevate because I think large dollar amounts, we should do recorded vote. So Annie, if you could call the roll and we'll do yes or no.
Okay, 1 second.
Sorry about that, Annie, I didn't prepare you for it.
Yeah. Joel Christman,
Yes.
Miles Durfee,
Yes.
Alexa Greenland,
Yes.
Christine Kane,
Yes.
Eric Premack,
Yes.
Dave Sharetta.
Not voting.
Abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Abstain. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, the motion passes 5-0, and we will go ahead. Thanks, congratulations to Albert Einstein community. We look forward to the path the project takes to the board for their final approval and then action further on the construction.
Thank you.